At 48, life unfolded in ways I never imagined. The days merged seamlessly, creating a repetitive cycle of tasks, responsibilities, and brief interactions with my husband, David, who remained absorbed in his current business venture. Our house, a delightful two-story in a serene suburb, seemed more like a backdrop for daily rituals than a true home. The flame we once shared had been overshadowed by years of routine, and I began to question if this was the extent of our story, until the day my car failed me and David's friend, Mark, entered my life. Mark had always been a familiar presence, a staple at barbecues and poker nights, yet I had never truly noticed him. At 50, he possessed a rugged handsomeness, his salt and pepper hair framing a face marked by a quiet intensity, as if he were perpetually guarding a deeper truth within. When David brought up that Mark had a knack for cars, I didn't give it much thought. My aging sedan had been coughing and wheezing for weeks, and that fateful morning it finally surrendered, leaving me stuck in the driveway. David attended a conference and reached out to Mark for assistance. I felt a mix of gratitude and mild irritation as I found myself waiting for a favor. Mark arrived in his pickup truck, toolbox in hand, his flannel shirt rolled up to his elbows. His movement had a certain quality, self-assured, leisurely, that drew me in. "I heard you're facing some difficulties," he remarked, his voice soft, accompanied by a smile that seemed more intimate than it ought to be. I dismissed it, attributing my unease to restlessness, and presented the car to him. As he leaned under the hood, I caught myself observing him more than I intended. The flex of his forearms, the way his brow furrowed in deep concentration. I reprimanded myself, yet my gaze continued to wander back. We engaged in casual conversation as he focused on his tasks, the dialogue flowing effortlessly yet tinged with an underlying tension. He would inquire about my day, my garden, and I would catch him glancing at me when he believed I wasn't aware. His gaze was unwavering, intense, as if he could uncover the facets of me I concealed. I chuckled a bit too heartily at his jokes, feeling a flush on my cheeks, convincing myself it was merely the warmth of summer. As he swept by to seize a wrench, his arm brushed against mine, sending a jolt through me, intense and unmistakable. I took a step back, feeling flustered, yet he merely smiled, slowly and with an understanding that suggested he had experienced it as well. After several hours of tinkering, he finally got the car to run. By the time he finished, the sun was setting, stretching long shadows over the driveway. I handed him a beer as a gesture of gratitude, and we settled onto the porch, the atmosphere rich with the fragrance of jasmine and an underlying weight of unvoiced thoughts. The dialogue became intimate, David's extended work hours, my solitude, the manner in which life hadn't unfolded as I had envisioned. Mark was attentive, truly attentive, his gaze fixed on me, and I sensed a magnetic force, a perilous tide I understood I ought to resist. "You deserve more than this," he said suddenly, his voice gentle yet resolute, as if the words had been waiting for the right moment to be spoken. My breath hitched and I averted my gaze, my heart pounding in my chest. I wished to brush it aside, to steer the conversation elsewhere, yet the atmosphere surrounding us was electric, buzzing with potential. He placed his beer aside and leaned in, his hand lightly grazing mine on the armrest. The caress was gentle, yet it ignited a blaze upon my skin. "Mark," I said, my voice laced with caution, yet it came out more like a desperate request. He remained steadfast. Instead, he flipped my hand, his fingers gliding over the contours of my palm, measured and intentional. "I've always been aware of you," he murmured, his voice soft and low. "Even when you didn't see me." My thoughts urged me to halt, to consider David, the life I had constructed, yet my body moved closer to him, pulled by a longing I hadn't experienced in years. Before I could rein in my impulses, I found myself kissing him, a fervent, impulsive kiss that carried the flavors of beer and unrestrained desire. His hands gripped my waist, drawing me nearer, and for an instant I surrendered to the sensation, the warmth of his lips, the intensity of his caress. We found ourselves in the house, the door barely shutting behind us, and soon we were pressed against the living room wall, a mix of hushed breaths and quickening heartbeats. It was a mistake, a profound mistake, yet it resembled the sensation of emerging from a long, dreamless slumber. His hand slipped beneath my shirt, and I leaned into him, enveloped in the exhilaration of being desired. Suddenly the phone erupted with sound, David's ringtone sharp and unsettling. Reality crashed down around me, and I shoved Mark aside, my breath coming in ragged gasps. He gazed at me, his eyes filled with an intense longing, yet I averted my gaze, a wave of panic surging within me. "This cannot be allowed to occur," I declared, my voice quivering with emotion. "This must remain a secret. Please." He nodded, yet his expression revealed a lingering hesitation, an unspoken indication that he wasn't prepared to move on from this. I picked up the phone, managing a smile as David's voice came through, unaware of the chaos I had just set in motion. As Mark picked up his toolbox and stepped outside, he lingered at the door, his eyes weighed down with thought. "This isn't over," he declared, his voice low and resolute, before disappearing into the night. I secured the door after he left, my hands trembling, and collapsed onto the floor, my thoughts a chaotic mix of remorse and desire. What have I done? And why, even now, did I feel the urge to open that door and draw him back in? The recollection of that kiss followed me, a specter that remained in each still moment. I found myself lost in thought, gazing at the place in the living room where Mark had pressed me against the wall, my skin still alive with the memory of his touch. The weight of guilt consumed me, a persistent throb that intensified with each smile David offered or gentle kiss he placed on my forehead before leaving for work. I adored him, or so I believed, but the existence we had created seemed like a prison, and Mark had shattered its confines, allowing something untamed and perilous to escape. I convinced myself it was a singular error, a fleeting moment I could conceal. Yet my body, betraying me, craved for something beyond. I steered clear of Mark for days, sidestepping poker nights and crafting excuses whenever David proposed bringing him along. Yet he was David's closest companion, an integral part of our existence, and evading him indefinitely was simply not an option. A week following the incident, David shared that Mark would be stopping by to assist with a leaking pipe in the basement. "He's a lifesaver," David remarked, unaware of the way my complexion drained of color. I nodded, managing a smile, yet within me brewed a tempest of anxiety and expectation. The mere idea of encountering Mark once more, of being near him, made my heart race, and I loathed myself for feeling this way. He arrived that afternoon, toolbox in hand, his presence electrifying the atmosphere of the house. David was present, engaging in conversation about the pipe, while I remained upstairs, feigning an effort to tidy the linen closet. Yet, Mark's voice resonated, calm and unwavering, tugging at my resolve and beckoning me down the stairs against my better instincts. In the kitchen, I spotted David passing a wrench to Mark, their laughter echoing as they reminisced about a shared memory from the past. Mark shot me a quick, intense look that left me momentarily breathless. "Hey," he said, nonchalant, yet the intensity of his stare revealed that nothing had slipped from his memory. David dashed off to the hardware store for a part, leaving us behind. As soon as the door clicked shut, the atmosphere became dense, laden with things left unsaid. I occupied myself at the sink, polishing a dish that was already spotless, when Mark approached, his shadow looming over me. "You've been avoiding me," he remarked, his tone gentle yet tinged with an unsettling undercurrent. I kept my gaze forward, fingers tightly clutching the sponge. "This isn't possible," I murmured, my voice trembling slightly. "It was a mistake." He chuckled, a deep, familiar sound that sent a thrill through me. "Is that the reason for your trembling at this moment?" I pivoted, ready to retort, but he was already too near, his hands pressed against the counter, trapping me in place. His gaze locked onto mine, fierce and unwavering. "Admit you're not feeling it," he said, his voice daring. I felt the urge to deceive, to create distance between us, yet my body was unfaithful, gravitating toward him as if drawn by an irresistible light. His hand grazed my arm, a delicate caress that ignited my senses, and I shut my eyes, resisting the allure. "Mark, please," I whispered, though it felt like giving in. He acted without a moment's pause. His lips met mine, fervent and unrestrained, and I surrendered to him, every bit of my determination dissolving beneath the intensity of desire. The kiss ignited with intensity, infused with the awareness that we were capturing fleeting moments that belonged to no one but us. His hands moved to my hips, drawing me closer, and I inhaled sharply into his mouth, my fingers weaving through his shirt. We made our way to the basement stairs, the chill of the shadows enveloping us as we went down, too absorbed to worry about the danger. The chill of the concrete floor pressed against my back as we descended, a chaotic intertwining of bodies and hushed desires. It was audacious, wild, yet in that instant nothing else held significance, not David, not the life I had constructed, not the repercussions looming to overwhelm us. Mark's hands roamed freely, his breath warm against my neck, and I surrendered to the intoxicating allure of the moment. But then the front door creaked open, and we heard David's voice echoing, "I'm back." Fear coursed through me, icy and intense, as I pushed Mark aside and hurriedly got to my feet. My heart raced as I adjusted my outfit, thoughts swirling as I searched for a plausible reason. Mark maintained his composure, seizing a wrench as if he had been engaged in the task all along. "Go," he murmured, his gaze heavy with unspoken intentions. I made my way up the stairs, managing a smile as David entered, carrying a bag filled with plumbing supplies. "Is everything all right?" he inquired, his brow knitting together as he cast a look at my heated complexion. I nodded, murmuring something regarding the heat, and he appeared to accept it, making his way to the basement to join Mark. I collapsed into a chair, my legs trembling, the recollection of Mark's touch still igniting a fire within me. As they wrapped things up, Mark found me in the hallway, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're not finished," he remarked, his hand grazing mine for a brief moment. I drew back, a tumult of fear and longing battling within me. "This must end," I declared, though my tone betrayed my uncertainty. He offered a slow, menacing smile before turning away, leaving me in a state of confusion. That night, as I lay next to David, his calm breathing a sharp contrast to the turmoil swirling in my mind, I discovered a message on my phone from an unfamiliar number. "You can't run from this." A chill coursed through me. It was Mark, I was certain of it. My fingers lingered above the delete button, yet I found myself unable to press it. Instead, I concealed the phone, my heart racing under the burden of what I had initiated. The following morning, a knock echoed through the house. David's sister had arrived, a surprise visit from out of town. She embraced me, then hesitated, her gaze sharpening. "You appear different," she remarked. "Is everything all right?" I managed a chuckle, yet her words reverberated in my thoughts. Did she catch a glimpse of something? Was she aware? The secret was beginning to unravel, and I questioned whether I could maintain my composure for much longer. The words from Mark settled in my chest, weighty and undeniable. I found myself caught in a web of silence, neither replying nor erasing the message, and that lingering uncertainty felt like a betrayal in its own right. Each time David gazed at me, his warm, trusting eyes pierced through me like a knife, twisting deeper with every glance. I found myself in a tumultuous struggle, ensnared by the suffocating guilt that loomed over me, and the intoxicating desire to be with Mark once more. The house, once a refuge, now resembled a treacherous landscape, each second tinged with the anxiety that someone, David's sister, a neighbor, anyone, might penetrate my meticulously woven fabrications. David's sister, Claire, lingered longer than I anticipated, her stay extending into the following day. Her probing questions about my off demeanor hung in the air, and I felt her gaze on me with a quiet intensity that sent shivers down my spine. I immersed myself in the role of the ideal hostess, preparing intricate dishes and maintaining a cheerful dialogue, yet my anxiety was stretched to its limits. Mark's absence only intensified my sense of unease. Each vibration of my phone sent a jolt through me, anticipating yet another message, another reminder of the boundary I had overstepped. As Claire departed, her embrace lingered with an unsettling weight, her gaze probing into mine as she softly urged, "Take care of yourself, okay?" I nodded, my throat constricted, yet her words resonated ominously. That evening, David was out with clients, leaving the house enveloped in a heavy silence. As I folded laundry, seeking solace in the familiar rhythm of my day, the doorbell interrupted the quiet. My heart raced. I opened the door to discover Mark waiting there, his face a mask of mystery, a subtle smirk dancing on his lips. "I figured you could use some company," he said, his voice low and menacing. I could have forcefully shut the door, demanded he go, yet my hand remained motionless on the knob. "David isn't here," I said, my voice trembling slightly. He moved nearer, his aura commanding attention. "I understand," he replied, and the atmosphere around us buzzed with purpose. I allowed him entry, berating myself with each movement. In the living room, the very spot where everything had started, I felt the heaviness of that memory enveloping me. "We can't keep doing this," I uttered, my voice quivering. Yet he was already stepping closer, his hand gently caressing my cheek. "So what was the reason for allowing me in?" he inquired, his gaze fixed on me, perceiving every fissure in my determination. I felt the urge to contest, to resist, yet his touch ignited something within me, and I was like parched kindling poised to ignite. His kiss lingered this time, intentional, as if he were relishing the moment we had captured. My hands explored his chest, pressing gently before curling into his shirt, drawing him nearer. We collapsed onto the couch, a mix of warmth and urgency, the universe shrinking to the sensation of his touch, the rhythm of his breathing. It was impulsive, foolish, yet it seemed like the sole thread tethering me to existence. His fingers glided along the curve of my spine, and I leaned into him, enveloped in the thrill of the forbidden. Suddenly, headlights pierced the darkness, illuminating the room as David's car rolled into the driveway. A chill of panic gripped me, intense and frigid. I pushed Mark away from Arst, my heart racing as I hurriedly got back on my feet. "Leave," I whispered urgently, gesturing toward the rear exit. He paused, his gaze heavy with irritation, yet the sound of David's key turning in the lock propelled him forward. He quietly exited just as David entered, his expression brightening upon seeing me. "Hey, you're awake," he remarked, loosening his tie. I managed to smile, my legs trembling, hoping he wouldn't see the heat rising in my cheeks or the chaos of the couch cushions. "I just couldn't sleep," I admitted, my voice rising slightly. He pressed his lips to my forehead, unaware, and ascended the stairs, while I sank against the wall, my breath uneven. The near miss ought to have served as a crucial reminder, a signal to put an end to this before it consumed me entirely. But the following morning Mark sent another message. "I'm not giving up on us." The term was a snare, alluring yet daunting. I gazed at the message, my thumb poised over the block button, yet I found myself unable to press it. Instead, I concealed the phone, my thoughts swirling with a tempest of fear and yearning. That afternoon Claire called, her voice strained. "I noticed Mark's truck parked close to your place last night," she remarked. "Delayed. What is happening?" My stomach sank, and I fumbled through a fabrication about him delivering tools, but her silence on the other end was overwhelming. "Exercise caution," she remarked at last, and ended the call. The walls seemed to constrict around me. Claire's suspicion was palpable, and it felt inevitable that she would soon confront either David or Mark. The following day I tracked down Mark, arranging to meet him at a coffee shop distant from our neighborhood, eager to bring this to a close. "This must come to an end," I stated, my tone hushed, filled with urgency. "Claire is inquiring. She'll tell David." Mark reclined, his eyes unwavering, resolute. "Allow her," he stated. "I'm weary of hiding in the shadows. I desire you, and I am indifferent to who is aware of it." My heart raced, caught between the exhilaration of his declaration and the fear of its implications. "You're going to destroy everything," I murmured, tears pricking at my eyes. He extended his hand toward mine, his touch enveloping me in warmth, anchoring my spirit. "Or perhaps I'll keep it for later," he remarked, and for an instant I found myself wanting to trust him. That evening, David returned home with an unusual expression in his gaze. "Claire called," he said, his voice steady yet tinged with an unidentifiable tension. "She mentioned a few things regarding you and Mark." The room swirled around me, my breath hitching in my throat. I parted my lips to refute it, to weave another tale, yet the words eluded me. David's gaze locked onto mine, a mix of pain and bewilderment dancing in his expression. "Please tell me she's wrong," he pleaded, his voice trembling. I longed to, oh how I longed to, yet the reality became a burden too heavy for me to bear any longer. "I'm sorry," I murmured, tears cascading down my cheeks. The words broke the fragile connection we shared, and David's expression twisted in pain, his hands tightening into fists. He remained silent, not raising his voice, simply turned and exited, the door slamming shut behind him. I collapsed onto the floor, tears streaming down my face, as the weight of my actions overwhelmed me. Mark sent a text later suggesting we meet, but I chose not to respond. I was unable to. The existence I once embraced had vanished, leaving me with naught but the remnants of my decisions. In the stillness of the night, I found myself pondering whether Mark's words held any truth. Had this choice truly rescued me, or had it merely reduced everything to ashes? The excitement of him remained, a shadowy beat beneath my sorrow, and I loathed myself for it. Would I rush back to him, pursuing that ephemeral blaze? Or should I attempt to mend what I had shattered? The responses eluded me, buried beneath the debris of my own creation, leaving me to ponder the inquiry, contemplating what might unfold next.